What if Mace Windu agreed to grant Anakin the rank of Master? Let's start the story in the Jedi Council chambers. Anakin stood in the center after being permitted to join the Council under Palpatine's authority. He was ecstatic. Anakin had always dreamed of joining the Jedi Council and becoming a Master, the rank he believed he deserved. In the original timeline, his dreams were crushed by Mace Windu, who denied Anakin the rank of Master. However, in this story, Mace Windu rose and proclaimed that from this day forward, Jedi Anakin Skywalker would be granted the rank of Master alongside his seat on this very council. He has earned this title due to his heroics in the Clone War and commitment to mastering the Jedi Code. Every council member stood and ignited their lightsabers and pointed them at Anakin. Skywalker knelt as the council chanted in unison, "By the right of the council, by the will of the Force, I dub thee Jedi Master of the Republic." Anakin took a seat, extremely happy. Yesterday he found out Padme was pregnant, and now he's a Jedi Master on the council. He has everything he's ever wanted. Now he just has to deal with his nightmares of Padme dying in childbirth. After the council meeting, he went to the Jedi Archives restricted section with Kenobi for the first time. Here he explored the section on Force healing, reading ancient texts, scrolls, and holocrons about the technique. He spent hours doing this, and Obi-Wan came over, asking him why he was so interested in it. Anakin made some poor excuse, and Kenobi pushed him further for an answer. Anakin thought on it. He trusted his master. He essentially raised him, and he was like family. Anakin decided to tell Obi-Wan the truth about Padme, their relationship, how she's pregnant, but also his nightmares of her dying in childbirth. Obi-Wan wasn't overly surprised. Deep down he knew of Anakin and Padme's relationship, but he didn't expect them to be officially married, and furthermore, be pregnant. He talked to Anakin about his nightmares, reassuring him that these may not be of the future, but of a future, and in reality might be just that, dreams. But reassures Anakin that no matter what, he will stay by his and Padme's side and be there when the time comes, and ensures she will survive childbirth. This greatly reassured Anakin, and together they studied Force healing to learn and practice some techniques they could use if they needed on Padme. That night, Anakin's nightmares changed. They were no longer of Padme dying in childbirth, and rather were not of Padme at all. They were more sinister. When Anakin dreamt that night, he stood in the Senate Rotunda. The Grand Chamber was silent, empty, and the rows of floating pods vanished into the shadows. A cold wind howled through the vast space, carrying with it a sound, a hiss. Anakin turned towards the Chancellor's podium. A massive serpent coiled around it. Its eyes glowed a deep yellow, watching Anakin without blinking. Anakin woke, thrown out of the vision. He didn't get back to sleep that night, but knew his dreams changing must mean something. He went to Yoda in the morning and told him the details of his visions. Yoda was concerned. These visions were unlike anything he had heard of. He felt as if the Force was telling them something, a warning maybe. The Senate chamber specifically worried him. The Council knew the Sith Lord Sidious was involved in the Senate somehow. Could Anakin's dream be linked to him? But then it clicked in Yoda, and he and Anakin rushed to the Council chambers. Yoda and Anakin detailed his dreams to the Council, and Yoda tells them all what he thinks. That the Force is hinting something to them. That the snake coiling around the Senate console with yellow Sith eyes is hinting to them that the Sith are involved at the center of the Senate. And the one who stands in the center of the Senate is none other than Chancellor Palpatine. Silence encompasses as they all consider what Yoda is saying. The Council has known for a while that the Sith were involved in the Senate, but would they really have reached the level of Supreme Chancellor? It's possible. Windu states that to be sure, they must investigate, and the entire Council decides to go to Palpatine's office. Palpatine protests the Jedi entering his office, asking under what authority they have to do so. But Windu states that they're acting in the best interests of the Republic to investigate the potential security breach. They start searching around the office, pulling Palpatine's things apart, looking for any clues. Ki-Adi-Mundi looks at one of Palpatine's statues and rubs his hand around the back until he brushes over a button and presses it, which opens a secret compartment in the statue, and out came a silver golden lightsaber. The entire Council looked at the saber and then over to Palpatine. Palpatine acted in a flash. He grabbed the saber with the Force and ran for the window. He threw the lightsaber through the window and jumped out, hoping to use this opportunity to escape. He thought he was clear and would go straight to the Senate to execute Order 66 and proclaim the Jedi attempted to assassinate him and deemed them traitors of the Republic. However, he was stopped and placed mid-air. He struggled, trying to wriggle away, but it was no use. The entire council had grabbed him mid-air with the Force. He tried to move his arms to cast lightning at them, but he was stopped in space. They pulled Palpatine back inside and put handcuffs on him, proclaiming that he was under arrest. He turned to Anakin, pleading for him to help him, that the Jedi are taking over. But Anakin was more grounded in this timeline and believing in the Jedi Council, and told Palpatine that he could not help him. Immediately after, the Jedi go to the Senate to temporarily take over. The Senate was in uproar, calling what the Jedi had done treason, but the Council give all the evidence they have of Palpatine being behind both sides of the war, and over the following days, call in the Kaminoans into the Senate to reveal that they were working with Darth Tyrannus, aka Count Dooku, and explain the inhibitor chips, only able to be activated by the Supreme Chancellor. Palpatine's plan to use the clone army to destroy the Jedi and establish the Empire was revealed, and he was sentenced to life in prison. The next day, Padme entered labor. Obi-Wan, Anakin, and now Ahsoka joined them, by Padme's side, ready in case their powers were needed to save her. But they weren't, and Padme gave birth successfully to Luke and Leia. All of them spent some time in the hospital room with the newborn babies, but turned to see Yoda and Mace Windu standing at the entrance, shock on their faces. They came, having sensed the outburst in the Force with the birth of Luke and Leia. The next day, Anakin was summoned in front of the council, and Yoda proclaimed that they were going to discuss the truth that was revealed yesterday, that Anakin Skywalker is married and has a family. Windu started, stating that Anakin should be put on temporary leave from the Jedi Order. Obi-Wan rejected, saying that Anakin is the reason Palpatine is behind bars. It would be disrespectful to condemn him for this act. Ki-Adi-Mundi stated that at the bare minimum, he should be stripped of his rank of Master. But Plo Koon stated that Anakin is the strongest Jedi of his generation, perhaps any generation. Maybe him being able to reach this power, even with strong attachments such as a family, is a sign that the Jedi Code needs to be changed. Saisi Tin spoke up next, telling them all that Anakin is the chosen one. He helped them defeat the Sith, but maybe his purpose is more than that. Maybe he's been sent to change the Jedi Order for the better. The debate continues, but they come to a vote, with 5 in favour of Anakin remaining on the council and 3 opposed. Meanwhile, Bail Organa was elected as the new Supreme Chancellor of the Republic. The war concluded over the following weeks, and the Republic started rebuilding. Anakin stayed in his penthouse apartment with Padme and the children. Padme took some time off as senator, but after the twins were 1 year old, she went back to work. However, over the next 8 years, she had to take some more time off, as she had 2 more children, a girl named Shmi and a boy named Gon. All of the Skywalker children joined the Jedi Order, and Anakin trained them himself. Anakin took up more of a teaching role in the Jedi Order, spending some of his time teaching lightsaber combat and Force abilities to the younglings. He trained his own children himself, up until they became apprentices. Luke became apprentice to Obi-Wan and Leia to Ahsoka, who had rejoined the Jedi Order. Shmi was apprentice to Shak Ti and Gon to Plo Koon. The Skywalkers really were the future of the Jedi Order. Over these years, Obi-Wan, Anakin, Saisi Tin, and Plo Koon led reform in the Jedi Order. They knew the necessity of changing the rigid Jedi philosophy that allowed the Sith to rise, and knew that at the heart of this was the Order's relationship with the Senate and their dogmatic rules on attachment. They argued over this countless times, but they couldn't argue that Anakin was proof it was okay. His power represented that attachments could be a benefit. Slowly the Order started to change, until the ruling was made that permitted attachments over the months and years following this. Relationships started in the Jedi, and a few began families of their own. Teaching in the Order changed around attachments. Younglings were taught to learn to control the emotions surrounding attachments, and to not give in to them rather than ignore them. During this time, the galaxy had recovered from the war. Corruption had left the Senate in the absence of the Sith's influence, and now Bail Organa was leading the galaxy into a new High Republic era. Bail Organa did 8 years in office, and his biggest change was the clone army reform, as the Republic continued the production of the clones, but had them modified to serve as the police force around the galaxy, and be able to mobilize into an army if necessary. Following Organa, Mon Mothma did 8 years, and then Senator Bel Iblis did a 4-year term, a Corellian politician. And finally, it was time for Senator Amidala of Naboo to become Chancellor. Her first year was peaceful, and she was widely liked. The charming and charismatic senator from Naboo. The Skywalker family still lived on Coruscant, with Luke and Leia, now Jedi Knights, and Shmi and Gon were coming to the end of their Padawan days. They were all extremely strong in the Force, and they were the strongest Jedi of their generation. It was time for Yoda to step down as Grand Master, and the council voted who would succeed him. This took days, but eventually Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi was voted in as Grand Master of the Jedi Order. However, everything changed in Padme's second year in office. The galaxy was completely caught off guard when the Yuuzhan Vong invaded. The Vong specialized in organic-based warfare. They were a race of warriors, born and bred from a distant galaxy. The Vong had been sending agents and advanced forces for years, causing small-scale disruptions, sabotage, and assassinations, but most went unnoticed by the Republic. The first major attack occurred in the Helska system, where the Vong established a base on Helska 5. They unleashed Dovin Basils, gravity-manipulating life forms, to tear apart and destroy the Republic ships and defenses around the system. Grandmaster Obi-Wan Kenobi sent Jedi Masters Anakin and Ahsoka to investigate, and they discovered the Helka system completely taken over by organic ships they couldn't identify. They were attacked by a small fleet of organic ships and engaged them in combat. They managed to capture one of the small fighters and decided to retreat back to Coruscant. They bring the ship life forms inside to the Jedi Temple to study them, where they learn this is the Yuuzhan Vong. They discovered their ships were completely organic, and what frightened them most of all was that the Vong were immune to the Force. One of the Vong captured proclaimed they were here to completely take over the galaxy, and all of this information was shared with the Senate. The Republic was at war once again. The clones around the galaxy were mobilized, and they gathered their forces ready for attack. The Yuuzhan Vong began their conquest, taking over many systems with brute force. The Jedi led the clone army into battle, as skirmishes began all around the galaxy. Anakin and his children were deep in the fight, often alongside each other. They engaged the Vong numerous times, which was difficult, without having the Force on their side to predict their movements. The Jedi were also played by Voxans, beasts of the Vong species that fed on the Force and were specialized Jedi hunters. It took time, but eventually the Republic adapted to the organic nature of the Vong and managed to halt their advancements for now. But already billions had perished, and they had to adapt soon. However, the Vong started doing something weird. They would steal lightsabers from fallen Jedi and take the Kyber crystals from the inside. The Jedi noticed this, but didn't think it of any significance until the Vong developed a new weapon, powered by the Kyber crystal due to its organic nature, and this new weapon had the power to dampen the Jedi's Force energy temporarily. This would turn the tide of the war, and the Jedi Council knew they needed to stop it now. The leader of the Yuuzhan Vong, Omni, captured a Jedi on one of his conquests and tortured him until he revealed the location where the Jedi got their Kyber crystals on Illum. The Jedi tracked the Vong's fleet movement towards Illum and knew instantly what they were doing. They had to defeat them there and then, or with this new Kyber-based weapon, their defeat would be certain. Anakin and his family alongside Obi-Wan led the attack. 35 Venator Star Destroyers against the majority of the Vong fleet. When they arrived out of hyperspace, the Vong were already there and had ground forces on Illum. Anakin and his children led the ground assault with over 35 Jedi and thousands of clones with them. The Vong had taken over the ice caves and had started harvesting Kyber. The Jedi attempted to drive them out and clashed with them at their entrance, but the Vong had prepared, bringing with them groups of Voxans to engage the Jedi. But Anakin sensed something across the battlefield and looked up to see the leader of the Vong, Omni, was staring directly at him. Meanwhile, the Republic fleet engaged the Vong in space. Kenobi commands his forces alongside Admiral Yularen. They went back and forth, the Vong unleashing waves of warships as Kenobi attacked, as Kenobi countered with intense laser fire and bombardment squadrons. However, the Vong were taking the edge in the fight. One by one, Venator Star Destroyers were demolished as Obi-Wan contacted Obi-Wan mid-fight, warning him of the state of the battle above, that if it continues how it's going, then their defeat is guaranteed. Omni is also informed on the state of the battle and starts taunting Anakin that first he'll defeat the army he's brought with him as well as the Jedi down here. And Anakin looks around to see more Vong join the battle and start overpowering the Jedi he's brought with him with the help of the Voxans. However, Anakin senses it through the Force as backup has arrived. Out of hyperspace came the Chiss expansionary fleet, who instantly begin engaging the Vong fleet from the rear. Kenobi receives a transmission request from the Chiss ship, and a blue man appears in front of him, introducing himself as Admiral Thrawn. Together, Kenobi and Thrawn coordinate the attack and sandwich the Vong forces. They give them no room to escape as they take out the Vong one by one. Back on the surface, Anakin taunts Omni that the battle is no longer going how he envisioned. Omni attacked with anger, thrusting his saber at Anakin, but Skywalker was the greatest duelist the galaxy had ever seen. He disarmed Omni and rendered him unconscious. Anakin, alongside his children, defeated the rest of the Vong on the surface and grouped up with Kenobi back in his command ship after they had wiped out the Vong. Together alongside the Chiss, they go to the Helska system to wipe out the Vong base to completely eradicate the Yuuzhan Vong from the galaxy and successfully win the war. Celebrations were carried out around the galaxy, and the Republic was now at peace again. The Jedi Council, alongside Chancellor Padme, met with the 9 aristocrat leaders and Admiral Thrawn of the Chiss. They thanked the Chiss for their help and proclaimed they couldn't have defeated the Vong without them, and if they ever need anything, all they must do is ask. The aristocrat leaders bow and acknowledge the gratitude, but Saganu IV speaks up, telling the Council and Chancellor that they will have to take them up on that offer. He explains how the Chiss ascendancy is under threat by a warring species in the unknown regions called the Grisk and require the help of the Republic. Padme shakes Saganu's hand and reassures him that the Republic will send support immediately. The following day, Republic Venator Star Destroyers take flight alongside the ascendancy ships. Anakin and his 4 children group up, ready for the next fight ahead. Anakin turns to Gon and Shmi, telling them that rumor has it, after this next conquest, they'll be promoted to the rank of Jedi Knight, and Anakin watches their face light up. He looks forward as they enter hyperspace, ready to lead the Jedi Order and galaxy towards peace, as the Chosen One should do. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to watch What If Obi-Wan joined Anakin, and What If Leia time traveled to meet Anakin Skywalker.